Playlisters, the wheels on the Trump train appear to be falling off, or at least in need of serious axle grease. But don't worry, we're bringing you into our group chat about politics and the next generation of leaders, and we're breaking it all down for you. This is Political Playlist Happy Hour.
Welcome to Political Playlist.
All right, are we ready, guys?
Happy Hour.
Happy hour.
We fucked that up so bad.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Political Playlist Happy Hour. I'm Michael Kristoff.
I'm Anna Muskie-Goldwyn.
I'm Anthony Barquette.
Yes,
And
he is.
listener, we will spare you the background drama. There was a little bit of a wheels falling off this podcast recording.
Yeah, speaking of wheels falling off.
We've been negotiating some technical difficulties, but we're going to spare you of all that. And we're just going to say, hey, guys, it's great that the three of us are all back on the happy hour together.
It is, even if one of us has terrible internet and has caused the rest of us terrible strife for the last 10 minutes.
Well, now since everyone knows Anna's pregnant, I'm causing her stress.
Yeah. By the way, stress is already elevated and you're elevating it more.
Yes. And just a company-wide memo, if I may. Pregnant people have a tendency to be stressful and
have been not so bad.
And honestly,
depends who you ask.
Well, I have to tell this story. I was going to a concert
I feel like
over
my
the weekend.
Stress helped you.
And Anna totally stressed me out about getting to and from the Rose Bowl from a transportation point of view. And honestly, thank God for your expectant mother stress, because this saved my life.
Yes.
Literally, if it wasn't for your stress and then you subsequently stressing me out, I never would have had a transportation plan and I might have missed the concert. So
yes,
honestly, I like the part 2 of the memo is that stressful pregnant people are very useful. So,
yeah, look, sometimes it's important to have a little bit of anxiety about things because it makes you solve a problem. So
yes, that's true. So anyway, it's great to be with everybody here. On today's episode, we are going to discuss how to talk about the potential wheels falling off this Trump train. And we thought this was an interesting thing to look at with 3 specific events that I feel like have really started to kind of shift the tenor, as it were, of like, okay, things don't seem to be going great, but here are 3 things that kind of really seem to be bad. And the first is the USS Lincoln, which we're going to get into. The second is this personal aid to the president, Natalie Harp. And the third is the latest overtures to North Korea and Kim Jung-Un. And I think, we should say at the outset here that every time we sort of think and talk about the latest goings on with the Trump administration and Trump, and we always, I think, we always think that, is this going to be the final chink in the armor? Is this the thing that's going to sink the ship? And of course, none of it seems to. But I do think that there is starting to be a shifting of the winds right now as we really approach the midterms. We have seen the polling and a lot of these primary victories, and it seems almost certain Democrats are going to take back the House, potentially the Senate. There's way more Senate races that are competitive that, frankly, on paper shouldn't be. So as we talk about, are the wheels falling off the Trump train, I think it's important to keep all that in context. Anna, do you want to start us off and kind of walk us through this whole crazy, really sad story that's happening on the USS Lincoln?
Yes.
Right now?
I think that you guys might be surprised at my perspective on this. So there is a big news story out there right now. People have probably been hearing about the USS Lincoln, which is an aircraft carrier ship from the U.S. Navy. It was deployed on November 21st, 2025 from San Diego. And since then, it has had only one single day port stop, which was all the way back in December. So typically what happens on these carriers is that they'll stop at ports every few months. They'll get a couple days where the sailors can go off the ship. They can, have, for lack of a better word, like time off, but more importantly than quote unquote time off of the ship. Because when you're living on an aircraft carrier, you're mostly living underneath in the ship. There's very little daylight. It's a very difficult environment to adapt to. But
Right.
they
And most people on the ship are not just like walking up to the deck to get some air.
correct. That
Right.
you're not allowed to do that.
Right. You're not allowed
'Cause
to.
there's
Right.
airplanes landing on the deck.
Right.
So anyway, but these people are in the military. They have signed up for this. They knew that they were going to go on an aircraft carrier. What is specific about this ship is that it is conducting maritime security operations in the Strait of Hormuz, which include this naval blockade that the Trump administration is trying to assert over Iran. On this ship, there are about 5,000 people. And what has come out is that a lot of family members of some of these sailors have described food shortages, broken toilets and showers. So sanitation is becoming an issue, and an ongoing mental health crisis, to the extent where there have been a couple sailors who have apparently attempted to jump overboard or wanted to try to jump overboard. So on the administration side, Pete Hegseth told Newsmax that these reports are overblown, although he didn't specifically address the details of the reports to describe what he felt was overblown. Similarly, acting Navy Secretary Hung Bao said that the ship is returning home, and he accused the media of trying to paint these warriors as victims. And he said that all of the mental health cases on the ship are being treated. A Navy spokesperson told Time magazine that the ship had the lowest number of cases related to mental health of all of the active 11 carriers that are out there right now. And people have probably heard Trump's response to all of this, which is that he doesn't think the ship has been deployed for long enough, which is perhaps the craziest bit of it all.
Kind of insane. Kind of an
yeah,
insane
and
thing for the
unsurprisingly,
commander.
Also, wait, really quickly, insane. This is like there's ships where this is happening worse on.
Right.
Like,
Right.
well, I think
Like
that
they were
there's a
like,
real, I think that
more people are
there-
jumping off of other ships, not this
Right.
one. Like,
That's true. So
Just also just a
unsurprisingly-
terrible defense. Yeah. Like,
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, congressional Democrats are jumping on this. There's a lot of veterans, including Ruben Gallego in the Senate, Seth Moulton in the House, who are calling for further investigation of what's going on this carrier. Seth Moulton said it is, quote, horrific that these brave young Americans signed up to serve our country, not be pawns for Pete Hegseth in a disastrous war that he can't figure a way out of. And on August 15th, a group of 13 Democrats on the Senate Armed Services Committee, plus other Senate Democratic leaders, sent a letter demanding more info on all this evidence that is coming out. So here's my take.
interesting.
We were watching this news story, and my husband, my father-in-law, was a Top Gun pilot, lived on one of these aircraft carriers during the first Iraq War. I hope that's correct. Sorry.
the
Bill,
Gulf War, Persian Gulf
The
War.
Gulf War. Thank you.
Yeah.
And, I said to Billy, I was like, isn't this so crazy? And he was like, well, yeah, but also like they're in the military, like his perspective was kind of like, yeah, but at the same time, they're not supposed to be going on a cruise, And so I kind of tried to take a step back and take my bias against Trump out of this and think about it. And I think you do bring up a good point that we should not be having any severe mental health crises, or as few severe mental health crises as we can in situations like this. What I think is more troubling about it is that, to me, this is actually just more indicative of how out of control the war in Iran is going, rather than concerning conditions about a specific naval ship. Because I kind of agree with Billy in a sense where it's like, they're at war, like there is an extent of, you've signed up to be part of the military. You knew you were going on an aircraft carrier. Yes, you didn't think it was going to be for 9 months. Yes, the Navy should have some better sort of organization where you had more port stops. But at the same time,
Yeah, you don't really have time to talk to your therapist. is what you're
Right.
saying.
Well, I think what
Or
I'm
like,
saying
it's-
I guess it's less that. It's more like you can't be mad that it's not going great
I
because
just
in
love the
war stuff.
rationalization, though, from the other side. That's such a good argument, because if this was switched, the Republicans would be saying, have you heard of how many people have jumped off of that ship carrier?
Mhm.
Right. It would
You know,
all
they
be
wouldn't be
about how
saying,
the
oh, you're in
Democrat doesn't
war.
care
Yeah.
about the military. Well,
Totally.
I think here's a couple of things to add to this context here. So allegedly, the port that this ship was docked in and was scheduled to redock in was a base in Bahrain, which was bombed by Iran.
Interesting.
So their like main port call was destroyed on like day 3 of this war, which I think speaks larger to what you're saying, Anna, of just how out of control and how lack of strategic
to me
planning.
That's the criticism, not like, they're
well,
leaving these soldiers without bathrooms. It's like, no,
right.
The criticism should be that there's been no plan
that
for
our
this
defense
ship
secretary
because
has
there's
no
plan for any of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And this administration
that's
agreed.
my feeling.
And I think, I think rightfully so, this is a great example of how like Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about our sailors.
I mean, that's
and
an
soldiers.
insane response
It's
to be
an
like,
insane response.
well, they should be deployed longer.
They should be deployed longer. Like, I don't think it's long enough, and like this, though, I think goes
By the way, says the guy who avoided active duty during the Vietnam War.
Right. Because of bone spurs 5 times. I think that this is what we're starting to see is the emperor has no clothes here. I think there are serious reports and concerns that Trump is just flatly not in good health. I mean, look at him. He does not look like he's in good health. There's all sorts of medical people coming out. I mean, Dick Cheney's cardiologist wrote a big op-ed about this saying, there's something going on with Trump. I can see it. I'm a doctor. This guy isn't good.
That's really funny.
No, and
Dick Cheney's cardiologist.
Yes, he was like the longtime cardiologist for Dick Cheney.
Did Dick Cheney die of a heart attack?
He's obviously gone senile.
He's like, right.
Yeah.
And so I think that like his response to that question and that reporter was more of like Trump not actually having all of his faculties and not realizing what like he's saying and just saying the opposite to say the opposite against like to punch back against the news media, right? So if the news media is like, what do you think about them being deployed for 200 days? He's like, I don't think it's long enough. Like, fuck you, piggy. Like that's what's going through his head. It's not about, is our cohesive and coherent strategy in Iran working?
Well,
No.
it's not even the typical more coherent Trump response of like just avoiding the question, You know what I mean? Like, I think that the smarter political move would kind of be to do what Pete Hegseth did, which is basically be like, whatever they're saying about the ship is not right. The media is blowing it out of proportion. But instead to have like such a frankly anti-military response is really telling, I think, of this man and how little he cares about the political ramifications of what he's saying more and more.
Right. Well, I think this is a good segue to talk about if you thought Trump cared about you before, maybe he doesn't actually care so much about you if he sends you on a decoy plane. So, over the weekend, Anna's beloved Senator John Ossoff was giving a speech, and he has really been finding his swing
Anthony
zone.
just licked his fingers.
This is what I imagine Anna doing, like looking at a photo, like, that was finger licking good.
Oh, that's great. So we want to play a little clip for you here from John Ossoff, and we're going to talk about it on the other side.
While the sailors on the Lincoln fight his war, while he fruitlessly drains our munitions and oil reserves, the president sleeps through his meetings. He golfs and trades stocks. See, he doesn't want to do the job. He wants to build his ballroom and travel with Natalie on their apparently defenseless flying palace gifted by the Emir of Qatar.
Wow. Okay.
Clock
so
Anna
yeah.
can wait 2 seconds before being like, oh my God, he's so hot.
I mean, yeah, pretty great. But he referenced somebody in here. How do we get this clip off the screen? Do we know?
Just click stop.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
so-
everybody. Michael's not smart.
I don't do the clips around here. But he's making a not so veiled reference to Natalie Harp, a personal aide to the president. We're going to talk about her in a sec. But I think what's notable here is to talk about what was the White House's response to this. And immediately,
Wow, they responded.
Oh, yeah. So immediately Trump is asked about this in the Oval Office. And he doubled down on his new nickname for Ossoff, which is Pee Wee Herman, and was calling him Pee Wee Herman. And then White House,
I do kind of feel like Ossoff's like a hot Pee Wee Herman.
White House communications director Stephen Chung really went after him on
By the way,
social
someone
media.
who should not be commenting on a hot person.
No
as
kidding.
One of the least attractive people.
He goes, quote, John Jerkoff is the biggest cuck loser in politics. John should look deep into his soul and ask himself why he's a miserable person who hates his country. It's because he's a radical extremist Democrat.
God,
And I think noteworthy is that.
Wait, cuck loser.
Yeah.
For sure, this guy just wrote a post about himself.
Well,
straight up.
This is what's
Like
great
that.
about
I mean, Anthony, you've seen what Stephen Chung looks like, right?
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm
Okay.
saying. He just wrote
Yeah.
himself,
So-
projecting that he's someone else.
Clearly, Ossoff and this Natalie Harp reference has gotten under the president's skin. I think the White House reacts based on how Trump reacts. So he's clearly fuming about this. So let me tell you guys who Natalie Harp is. Okay.
Wait, before you tell us who she is, can
Yeah.
we just briefly go back and say that the reason we're talking about this, because as you said with the decoy plane,
Right.
are you
of
going to
course.
get to this? Or
Well, I was, but let's get to it.
I think
We
just to
can get
set
to
the
it now.
stage in
Yeah.
30 seconds, that as people know, there was a apparent threat against Trump by the Iranians. So the Secret Service,
When he was in Turkey about a month ago.
when he was in Turkey, the Secret
for the
Service
NATO
devised
summit.
a plan
Yeah.
where he was going to board the new Air Force One, and then he promptly got into a catering truck, went onto another plane with a very select few people from his inner circle, leaving
those included Dan Scavino, Walt Nauta, you may remember was indicted with Trump in the documents case, and this Natalie Harp. Leaving behind on the plane our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, our Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent,
and the entire White House press corps.
Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who promptly quit, supposedly unrelated after this, to be on the decoy plane that missiles would have fired at from Iran. So
Now back to
Natalie Harp is a 35-year-old woman who was a former OAN news anchor.
Anthony's like, is she single?
I honestly, I believe she is. And
How do I look?
when she was about 25 years old, in 2015 or 2016, she was sadly diagnosed with cancer. Fortunately, she survived because she was prescribed FDA-approved treatment from doctors. But upon being in remission, she credited Trump with being the reason that she was saved. And she cites this, law that he passed that really kind of doesn't have to do with the treatment she was receiving. But she ultimately became this devout Trump worshiper. And she went on Fox News and was just praising Trump. This, of course, caught Trump's attention. And she started to
wow.
She started to
I did not
work
know
for him.
any of this.
Yeah. So she then was asked to speak at the Republican convention in 2020. She then joined his staff in 2022. It gets even crazier. The New York Times verified that she began to like wrote a series of like insanely personal letters to him in 2023 saying, quote, "You are all that matters to me," that she never wants to let him down, that he is her guardian and protector in life. These are all verified by the New York Times. So
Whoa.
like it got to the point where allegedly the
Gross.
Secret Service became concerned that this woman is too close to him and might be a perceived
Wild.
threat. Trump then overruled that and said, no, I'm making her one of my executive assistants. Now, to say she's an executive assistant does not even come close to illustrating the influence and inner circle level access that she has. She's become known as the human printer, and she carries around a bag with allegedly a lot of things in this bag. But one of the confirmed things
I would
is
love to do like unpack my bag with me on
get
Instagram
ready
with her.
Me. Because allegedly
What's
also
in
in
my
this
bag?
bag
Yeah.
are Depends, because Trump has this like incontinence
course.
problem. But we'll save Depends for another episode. On this episode, we're talking about the human printer. She prints out all of the favorable news coverage of Trump on this portable printer. She also prints out potential tweets that he should send or truths. He then marks all of these printings up with a Sharpie, gives it back to her. She then types all of the revisions onto his Truth Social and posts these for him. So it's this like weird communication loop with
Honestly,
this portable
Michael,
printer.
it kind of sounds like how you
Listen,
do
I
business.
do love a printed email. I grant you.
Also,
I grant you. Yeah.
I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah. But the point is that John Ossoff's comments here have really struck a chord. And I think this speaks to the level of loyalist and Trump confidant that is being saved via the food truck ruse, and the level of cabinet member, i.e. Treasury Secretary, press secretary, Secretary of State, that's not being saved. And I guess my question to you guys is, at what stage of the train wreck do we think this is alarming, that this is who has the seemingly most
I had no
influence
idea about
with the
any of
president?
this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have another maybe unexpected take on this.
Wow. Jeez, Anna. Pregnancy's really changed you.
I know. It's just shockingly becoming more conservative, I guess. So I feel like this is being overblown from the perspective of, oh my God, he left like Rubio and Besant and Levitt and all the press on the plane. Because I kind of feel like there's probably been times in the past with other presidents where if there is a threat on the president's life, they can't tell everybody. And like maybe, sure, the Secretary of State normally would be someone who would come, like whatever. But I sort of am
Seems like a good person to bring along.
But it's kind of like, okay, he's numero uno, right? And so the Secret Service's job is to protect him. And if the plan that they think is the best is to make sure that nobody knows, including Rubio, Besant, and Levitt and whoever else, and get him on that catering truck with all the shrimp to go to the other plane, like, I just feel like to me, that's actually not that crazy. What I think is more crazy about this story is the Natalie Harp of it all. Is like the idea that our president has this aide who has really no qualifications from a political or policy or legislative like standpoint, or even a history of administrative work to, show that she would be a great sort of administrative aide. And the story of like her worshiping him, that's the person that, whether it's on a trip, on a NATO summit, or whether it's in the catering cart to go to the safe plane, like that there is that person and that she's that person with him, to me is actually what makes it all feel crazier
Yes,
than
and let me give
the
you
decoy
some
plane thing itself.
Let me give you some more context to all this. So Walt Nauta was the guy who, in the documents case indictment, he was the one who moved all of the classified documents into the bathroom at Mar-a-Lago. And he was the guy who was a body man for Trump. He was just like a valet, and basically has now been elevated to one of Trump's loyalist of, manservants. And Dan Scavino, for those who don't realize, he goes back 30 years with Trump, maybe 20, 25 years, maybe 30. I forget what the exact number is, but he was a caddy at one of Trump's golf clubs and now is one of the senior most advisors to the president. So we have a crazy woman who writes love letters to him, a guy who committed crimes for him, and a former caddy are the three most important people that are whisked to safety with the president of the United States. And to me, that speaks to the current state of affairs, which is this guy, if you didn't think he was fit to serve office before, oh boy, look at the people who he is taking advice from now. I mean, this is so indicative of the shit show train wreck that we're in right now. And I think that's only going to become more clear when we get to the actual midterms and we see the results, because I think like this is all, nobody's talking about this in the Republican Party. None of these advisors. I mean, Caroline Leavitt just quit. We're going to see, what ultimately becomes of her.
She did just give birth. She did just give birth.
Yeah, but she's not quitting because she's like, that's like the convenient line.
I
I'm
love
going to go
Anthony.
raise my family.
You listened to our episode last week where we were talking about how women just can't have it all. Huh?
They really can't. I mean, look, Anna's already changing her whole political side just through pregnancy. Just proves our point.
Well, so, I feel like
it's pretty wild. It's wild.
It's wild. And I also think, to your point about the ship, I think Anthony said it, like that if it was reversed, that, Republicans would be going after it, being like, look at all the people committing suicide on the ship or whatever. Like with this, I think what's really smart about Ossoff is that like there is the petty politics of Trump is obsessed with this beautiful 35-year-old woman who thinks he's God. And
is he sleeping with her?
Well, honestly, it's kind of like,
is this his mistress? Like,
it's sort of like, who cares? Because the fact
that but imagine if Bill Clinton had a 35-year-old blonde bombshell who he was like whisking away to safety while Hillary's still on the decoy plane. Like, do you know what I mean? This is so insane.
But I think that I will be very curious to see if other Democrats can, because what Ossoff is doing is, what I appreciate is that he's not like over sensationalizing it. He's not creating a story that she's a mistress or whatever, but he's making a joke out of it because it is an absurd thing that this woman has so much power over Trump. And the only reason that she does is because she has basically like deified him. And that
big word. Anthony, do you know what that is?
I don't, but
you don't.
I think
you want me to tell you?
Tell us about North Korea.
I think she's an alien.
Yeah, she might be.
Well, okay. Wait, do you want to know the definition of deified?
Yeah, it's like if you're godlike. If you make someone
I know that. I was just joking.
He's a good
Thanks for making every
I really wanted to give you a vocabulary lesson.
Yeah, great. My dad would admit that to you anyways. Okay. Anyways, she's an alien.
Let's talk about the Koreas.
So is a quick question while we get into the Korea topic. Is it important that the U.S. and South Korea continue to do joint military exercises, in your opinion?
Yes, 1,000% yes. This is one of the This is one of the most important strategic geopolitical military alliances we have, because one of the best defenses we have against the threat of nuclear weapons from North Korea is the fact that South Korea has an entire military and hundreds, if not thousands of missiles pointed right at North Korea. Now, North Korea has them pointed back at South Korea, and that would basically annihilate the Korean Peninsula. However, it's that threat deterrent, in my view, that if Kim Jong-Un were to do anything, he would be facing certain death. So that's why I think it's important.
Wow.
Yeah.
Should we hear pretty quickly then from North Korea's favorite friend, Anna Goldwyn?
Yes, I would love to. Anna, your thoughts?
Is this like a high school debate? I'm supposed to take the other position?
And honestly,
Well,
if you want to do the
I
accent or not, it's up to you.
Sure, yeah. Here, I'll take the other position for fun.
Okay.
We don't need South Korea. I mean, we're becoming great friends with North Korea. So why would we need to have such a good relationship with their adversary, South Korea? I mean, we all see how much North Korea is advancing. We all understand that Kim Jung-Un really has a good head on his shoulders, and that the relations between Kim and Trump are just thriving. So to have the threat of these joint military operations really feels like it's actually destabilizing, which, I think is everybody's goal, is to create stability. So I would say that we should just trust North Korea on this one.
Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of enjoyed you guys both talking about it yourself. But
that's great. We should mock debate more often.
We should, yeah. So this is pretty significant that Trump tweeted this out. So basically, every year, South Korea holds these exercises with the U.S. that are military practices that go back to about 1969 is when South Korea really started these. So Trump ended up tweeting out that he thought the Pentagon should substantially reduce U.S.-South Korean joint military exercises. And this whole festival pretty much started on Monday, August 17th. So when he tweeted that, everyone was kind of going, okay, so what is the U.S. involvement now? And which is just classic Trump. But an important point here is he actually suspended this in 2018. So, and he did this right after he met with Anna Goldwyn's best friend, Kim Jong-Un.
Yeah.
I
as
was
a
there,
result.
actually. I was part of the meeting.
So the U.S. and Korea ended up restarting, or the U.S. joined back again in 2022. So it's not, he's done this before, so I'm guessing South Korea probably would have known he would do this, right? Seoul actually, the government came out with a quote, which I think is so funny. So it said it hopes that they said it was reviewing Trump's comments and wants substantive discussions with Washington rather than publicly confronting Trump. I feel very, respectful and appropriate.
Yeah.
And then they said it hopes that the Trump-Kim relationship could help restart dialogue between Washington and Pyongyang.
That's basically what I said.
Yeah.
Which was kind of interesting.
Well, I think what seems to be lost, I remember having a conversation back in 2017 when the whole North Korea Trump stuff was sort of starting up. And maybe it was even 2018. I forget when the little rocket man back and forth was. But this person who's a Republican was saying that they were saying that, well, we have to talk. He's doing great because he's talking, he's engaging. And I think what has been forgotten in this entire North Korea love saga is that Trump met with Kim Jong-un on 3 separate occasions. Obviously historic in that technically the president of the United States set foot on North Korean soil, the first ever. But part of this was in the interest of getting North Korea to curb its nuclear program, to reduce its missile testing, to basically help begin a dialogue and a strategy to denuclearize. Well, of course, none of that happened. What happened? The opposite. North Korea increased its nuclear stockpile. They increased its missile testing. They became more hostile to South Korea. They became more brazen in its nuclear test in the China Sea and threatening Japan, launching tests over Japan, one of our staunchest allies. So ultimately what happened was Trump got a bunch of love letters from North Korea for his one-day presidential library. North Korea became more nuclearized. They have been able to marry a nuclear bomb with a warhead, and ultimately the world is less safe. So this, to me, is a page one, above the fold A story that is just not at all being talked about. And going back to your first question, Anthony, why is it so important that the U.S. keeps joint military operations with South Korea? Well, it's because of that. Clearly, talking with Kim Jong-Un hasn't done jack shit.
Well, I think there's also similarities here as you're laying all that out between U.S.-Russia relations and U.S.-Iran relations. So, like, we didn't try to stop Russia from having nuclear weapons. I don't think that's the goal of the United States at this point. But Trump did want to cozy up to Putin, think that he could have some sort of like a friendship dialogue with him, and that in some ways would make the U.S. more safe. Cut to Putin invades Ukraine, which then destabilizes all of Europe and creates this massive war that now has been going on for 4 years. And Trump's, relationship, friendship, whatever with Putin has proved completely invaluable. So then on the nuclear side of things, the whole point apparently of going to war with Iran was to denuclearize. And now all we're trying to do is get the Strait of Hormuz back to what it was. And Iran clearly is not going to be willing to give up anything on the nuclear weapons. So like it does feel like those three countries they're like bits and pieces of all of these elements of Trump thinking that he knows how to make the deal, how to do the relationship, how to have the right friendship, but not realizing that like the power struggles at stake are so much more complex than he can understand and execute on. And so I think that with Kim Jong-Un, like I think Putin's much smarter than Kim Jong-Un. I think that like Russia's a much more complex country than North Korea, frankly. And so I do think that Putin was playing Trump. I think with Kim Jong-Un, it's just like North Korea is North Korea. Like it is such an impenetrable country, and it is such it's so impossible, I think, for the US to have any sort of true influence in the country. The only influence we have is through South Korea militarily. And I think that is sort of your point about all of this.
Totally agree.
I actually didn't know, or I'll say I forgot, but I don't think I actually knew that Trump stopped this in 2018. And so it is interesting because I think it's going to become one of these ping pong balls where like, if Trump is there, he's going to get rid of this. If a Democrat comes into office, they're obviously going to re-engage with South Korea. So it's kind of like it becomes this political football and hopefully doesn't lead to nuclear war with North Korea.
Hopefully. Anthony, what do you think?
Well, just another interesting point to add to this, which I think is a bit disrespectful, is we have about 30,000 permanent troops in Korea, South Korea. So like, I bet they were all participating in this.
Right.
I would assume so, because the whole point of this is to like, what will happen if North Korea bombs South Korea? So all of these are showing exercises where they're basically like simulating what would happen if the island is actually attacked. So it's kind of a, obviously our troops are going to be involved in that. Right. And to me, it's almost like a disservice to them. Like if Kim Jong-Un decides to attack them, like we didn't get to do our run through. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Who knows?
That was our practice. It was our
guys,
practice.
we skipped rehearsal. So good luck.
Yeah. We skipped rehearsal. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think that in summary, with all of these three news stories, the question that I feel like is being more and more clearly answered is that Trump is less and less concerned with the political ramifications of his actions and words. And you would think that in any normal presidential run, that the president would be, at least for another few months, holding out on that lack of concern so that his party could win or at least do better in the midterms than predicted. But I do think that it's just showing that like he has no concern for what's going to happen legislatively. He has proved to himself and other people that he doesn't need Congress to do the things that he wants to do. And he's old and senile. And so he's just saying and doing whatever the fuck he wants. And my fear is that over the next 2 years, how much crazier is this stuff going to become? Like, I don't think there's like a true grasp. I think about this every couple of days that we literally went to war with Iran for no reason. We as the American people have suffered economically because of that, with no plan to help us economically. And what we are now trying to get out of that war is basically what we had before we went in it. And I feel like that's just one example of many of like there's no consideration anymore for the political ramifications of things. And unfortunately, the political ramifications are often what do keep the train on the tracks, because people have to limit what they say and do in order to try to galvanize support. So in an authoritative way, if someone doesn't have those concerns, like what's going to happen? And that's what I have some fear.
Well, we might have just invented a new word, authoritarian.
Yeah, what was the word I was trying to say?
Authoritarian, but authoritaric. We'll go with it.
We'll let this one slide to the writer.
I did also use the word deify earlier, so I feel
deify.
like I each other out.
Totally.
Cheers. Hey, playlister, if you like what you heard, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a comment. We read them. Ask us a question. We'll answer it. We'll talk about it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I didn't have anything else.